Hey ANPers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is ANP1 lecture test 2 and I am re-recording video 4. I was almost done when the power flipped off and flipped right back on. Just completely deleted 15, almost 20 minutes worth of video. So we are putting a timer on and we're making shorter videos. Attempting to, let's see, timer, not alarm. Okay, shorter videos. All right, so we are starting again. First time for y'all. At the bottom of page, printed out on page 6 for me, not sure where it is for you, but you're looking for this, 4.4 connective tissue. So let's talk about connective tissue. We talked about glands. We're talking about all the tissues for chapter 4. Chapter 5, we will talk about the integumentary system. So characteristics of connective tissue. Okay, that was supposed to be a pen. Ooh, what pen color do we want? I was doing yellow, and the yellow actually kind of shows fairly nicely on the green background. So I think we're going with yellow. All right, so connective tissues are connected to the overlying epithelium via a basement membrane. So you may recall, I believe on a previous video, probably, we drew this with an epithelium and underneath it is a basement membrane, unless you're using the Latin, and then it's a basal lamina, and under that is connective tissue. Every time. Until we get far enough to meet the exceptions. Every time, except we're not there yet. So every time for now. Okay. So you have, and in fact, we'll call this a body membrane if we haven't already. I think we have. Didn't we do that in test 1? Okay. Regardless, epithelium, basement membrane / basal lamina, connective tissue. This is just like on the floor. The epithelium will be the surface you choose, whether it's, you know, the wood look tile or the snap it wood tile. Those are fun. And then under that is a vapor barrier, and under that is the subfloor. So, all right. So the basement membrane, or the Latin is basal lamina for basement membrane. And 3 basic components of connective tissue. So here we have, 1, cells, specialized cells, and there are different types of cells. So a blast cell is a builder cell. And there is no point from here on out that you don't need to know that. And it builds whatever it says. So a fibroblast is a cell that builds fibers. A chondroblast, chondro means cartilage, so that's a cell that builds cartilage. An osteoblast is a cell, an osteoblast is a cell that builds bone. Cyte just means cell. So like an osteocyte is a mature bone cell, osteo means bone. That's an E. Just a mature bone cell that maintains the matrix around it, as we will learn. And a clast cell is, in the voice, I'm writing with a mouse, give me a second. There we go. The destroyer. So a clast cell is a destroyer cell. It breaks things down. So an osteoclast is a cell that breaks down the bone. It eats holes in your bones from the inside and releases the calcium into your bloodstream, because a regulated calcium level in the bloodstream is actually very important. Worth chewing holes in your bones. So. Osteoclast. So blast, builder, cyte is cell, clast is a destroyer. All right, number 2 are the extracellular protein fibers. They are usually solid, sometimes they're dissolved in the liquid, usually solids, not always. And number 3 is our ground substance. There will be several different types of ground substance. It is usually fluid, it is always extracellular. So here you have cells versus extracellular, extracellular. So the matrix is the extracellular part, which is made up of fibers and ground substance. Or, as I often say in lab, and probably said at some point in the lab videos, the matrix is everything outside of the cells, which is extracellular, which involves both the fibers and the ground substance. So it's different ways to say the exact same thing. The matrix is the fibers plus the ground substance, or the matrix is everything extracellular in the connective tissues. Okay. Audible page flip noises. That means flip the page. Okay, but we're not going to flip the, because we're still on here. And so we're going, because it takes me forever to write these words with a mouse, I'm going to turn the subtitles on briefly and let the subtitles type in these words for me. Speech to text. Fun, right? Okay. Structural framework. Transport fluids and dissolved materials. Protection. Support, surround, and interconnect other tissues. Support, surround, and interconnect other tissues. Store energy, triglycerides. Defend body. Okay, I'm turning that off because it's annoying. But well, we got those down. Now let's go back and write down the notes. So the structural framework, that's going to be your bones and your cartilage. So bones and cartilage are considered connective tissue. The epithelial tissues line the surfaces. The muscle contracts. The nerves send information. Everything else, and I mean everything else, is a connective tissue. So the structural framework is the bones and the cartilage. The transport fluid and dissolved material are obviously the liquids. The two fluid connective tissues are blood and lymph. Protection is again bones and some of the cartilage. So you've got your spine, your ribs. Sorry, I said spine and knocked on wood here. Your skull, your ribs, your spine, that all protect soft tissues. Support, surround, and interconnect other tissues are your connective tissues proper, which we'll learn more about those in a second. And then stores energy, triglycerides, that'll be your adipose CT. And defend the body is the white blood cells in the bloodstream. Okay. Now we'll look at the next slide after we move my face out of the way. Well, here, let's see. Mesenchyme is the embryological connective tissue, and it can turn directly into the supporting connective tissues, fluid connective tissues. It also turns into embryonic connective tissue, which turns into then the two connective tissues proper. So let's learn this classification because you need to know. So first we have connective tissue proper, and that's number one. And then A here is the loose connective tissue, and two of these three loose connective tissues are lab terms that you already learned for lab. So you know all about areolar CT and adipose CT. We're adding reticular connective tissue, which is still a wrong answer on every single lab test because it's not a lab term. But we are learning about this for lecture. And then B there is dense connective tissue. So these are all the connective tissues proper, the 3 loose connective tissues and the 3 dense connective tissues. And of these 3, we learned one in lab, the dense regular connective tissue. We're going to add dense irregular connective tissue and elastic connective tissue, which should not be confused with elastic cartilage. Different stuff. We'll learn about that here in not this video. Not this video. Shorter videos. Number 2 will be fluid connective tissue, which, as we mentioned, is the blood and lymph. We have a whole chapter for blood in 2402, and the lymph we're sort of skipping in 2402, but you will learn about it in micro when you talk about immunology. And 3 is the supporting connective tissue, and this is your cartilage and bone. You know all about the cartilage, hyaline, elastic, and fibrous. We're going to learn more. Okay. And bone, test 3 will be all about bone, so we will learn a lot more about that. Excellent. You do need to know these classifications. If I say dense irregular connective tissue, you need to know obviously that it's a dense connective tissue and that it's a connective tissue proper. So this classification does matter. Which group is it in does matter. These loose connective tissues have fibers and cells and matrix. The dense connective tissues are almost solid extracellular fibers. There are cells and matrix, but it's a whole lot more fibers. So, can't believe it's not bacon. What? It looks like bacon. It happens. All right, so the connective tissue proper has cells, fibers, and a viscous syrupy, as like syrup, like maple syrup, but with a Y, syrupy. So S-Y-R-U-P-Y, syrupy, ground substance. And the connective tissue proper cell populations, normally I don't cover these in class. I tell you to read the section and write them down, but we're not on a short schedule here. So I will read them, but you should read about them and learn more than just these basic concepts that I'm giving you now. So fibroblasts, as we said, build fibers. Fibrocytes maintain those fibers. Adipocytes, you know, are fat cells. They store energy. Mesenchymal cells are stem cells for the connective tissues. Microphages are small white blood cells for defense. Melanocytes make melanin, that's your skin color. Macrophages are large white blood cells, also defense. Mast cells make histamine for inflammation and heparin, which is an anticoagulant, so it makes your blood not clot. And then lymphocytes are another type of white blood cell, and also defense, they make antibodies, which we will sort of gloss over when we get there, but you'll take micro. You'll get it. Audible page flip noises, page 8. So the top of the page is a chart. Here's what goes in the chart. Fibers, collagen, which tend to be pink on the brand of slides that we have at school. They are stained pink. Now there are different stains you can use that will stain them different colors. Thankfully, all of the collagen fibers that we have on campus for our purposes are all stained the same color. Yay! So, and these are found in connective tissues proper, specifically tendons and ligaments, or mostly just collagen fiber. Reticular fibers tend to be brown on the slides, therefore support and framework. They're found in the soft, they kind of make a framework of soft organs like liver. They surround the blood vessels and the nerves. They're found in lymph nodes. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And then elastic fibers are made of elastin, E-L-A-S-T-I-N. They are flexible and elasticy, like elastic. And they tend to be stained dark blue on the brands of slides that we have, thank goodness. And they're found in the elastic ligaments, such as the elastic ligaments between the vertebrae, bones of the back. And then ground substance, as you know, fills the spaces between the cells and the fibers. It's found in connective tissue proper. It tends to be clear, colorless, and viscous. And viscous means like thick and syrupy. But like real maple syrup, not the high fructose corn syrup crap. Because that's gross. I don't like it. Alright, high fructose corn syrup is not actually good for you. If you get too much fructose, you actually have less of the enzyme needed to break down fructose. So granted, you have to have kind of a lot of it before it becomes a real issue, but it's an excuse to not like it. I'll take it. And loose connective tissues are packing material found between the organs. They cushion, stabilize, support, yada yada. All right. And then, I think this is about where we cut off on the previous video. And then here we have the embryonic connective tissues. We'll do this one last slide. We mentioned already that it's called mesenchyme. Okay, the yellow doesn't show very well on the white, so I'll put an arrow in the green. Mesenchyme, and it gives rise to all the other connective tissues. And the adult connective tissue does contain scattered mesenchymal cells, which mesenchyme is the noun. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. And mesenchymal is the adjective form because it's describing the noun cells. What kind of cells? Mesenchymal cells. So mesenchymal is the adjective form of mesenchyme. You're welcome. Hashtag not an English major, but college educated. Okay, and the mesenchymal cells can assist in repair of injuries. So there you have it. We finally finished this video the second time. So this has been ANP1 lecture test 2, video 4. I'm looking at a 6 because we started on page 6. And we covered the bottom of 6, all of 7, and the very top of 8. And we will start with the charts on page 8 in our next video. So thank you as always for tuning in. It's good to virtually see you here. The education must go on. Dr. J out.